Houck from Cooking by Moonlight, and this is how to make the blueberry chiffon cake. To make this blueberry chiffon cake, we're going to start with a plain white cake mix, but we're not going to follow the instructions on the back. We're going to go rogue and do it our own way. Chiffon cakes are a little different from regular cakes because they use a lot of eggs, but instead of putting the whole egg in and mixing it up, you separate the eggs out and take the whites and whip them up until they're really, really fluffy and fold them into the cake at the end. That's what gives it that nice fluffy rise, almost like an angel food cake. I'm going to turn my mixer on and let this run for about 4 to 5 minutes until it's at soft peaks. I'll show you what it looks like when it's there. All right, I think that's ready. So you want it to be nice and foamy. Everybody's mixer is just a little bit different, and even on the same setting can go a slightly different speed. So you really want to watch and make sure they don't get overmixed. You want them to be fluffy like this, almost like marshmallow cream or whipped cream, but not come to the point where they're starting to break apart and look curdled. To my 5 egg yolks here, I'm going to add the cake mix. Again, this is just a plain white cake mix. Dump the whole thing in. And to that, we're going to add 1/3 cup of oil. I'd use canola oil or vegetable oil, anything without much flavor to it. Don't use olive oil or it'll end up with a very funny taste. All right, there's my 1/3 cup of oil. And now I'm going to do 3/4 cup of blueberry juice. Perfect. And because blueberry juice is kind of a purpley color, and you'll see when it mixes up, it kind of gets a little bit gray. It's not the brightest blue, but you really want a pretty blue cake. So I'm actually just going to add in a little bit of blue food color, probably like 3 or 4 drops. That'll help make the cake a brighter blue color. You won't be able to taste it. All right, I'm going to mix this whole cake up, and then we're going to fold in those egg whites that we have sitting off to the side. And we're just going to put a pretty big spoonful of them in here with the cake mix. This first time, you're going to whisk it together. This is going to help make the batter just a little bit fluffier. And then we're going to slowly fold in the rest of those egg whites. We don't want to overmix them because if you do, you're going to deflate the egg whites, and then your cake won't have as pretty of a lift or as nice of a crumb. So you got to be pretty delicate with it when you add in the next batch. There we go. And if the blue color isn't quite enough for you, you can always add in a little more blue food color. It really doesn't change the flavor at all. It's just for a pretty color. And when you're folding in, you don't want to stir. You just want to swipe the edges of the bowl and kind of fold it over. And then swipe the edge of the bowl and fold it over. You turn the bowl as you go. This keeps it from getting overmixed. That is just about done. You want to make sure that those egg whites are completely incorporated in and you don't have any chunks. And when you do, you're ready to go. It makes a very light, fluffy batter. I'm going to grease just the bottom of this pan. Chiffon cakes, like angel food cakes, need to stick to the sides of the pan so that they can keep rising up. So we're going to grease the bottom so it's easy to get off the bottom. But the top we're going to leave ungreased, and then at the end we're going to run a knife along the edges to help get it out. Don't worry, it won't stick that bad, I promise. We're going to pour our batter in. You want to do your best to get it nice and even in there. If it isn't quite even, you can always use a spatula to even it out. What you don't want to do is bang on the pan too much. Since we do have those egg whites in there, you don't want to do anything that will deflate them. After your cake is in the pan, you're going to put it in a 350-degree oven for between 30 and 40 minutes. You can set a cake tester in to see if it's done. It should come out clean. When it's done, you're going to put it out of the oven and invert it immediately to cool. I'll show you what to do. When you take your cake out of the oven and it's still warm, you're going to invert it on its little stilts to sit to cool. This is to keep it from flattening down as it continues to cool because it is still baking while it's hot. We're going to leave it here for about half an hour to an hour to completely cool down, and then we'll flip it over and get our cake out. After it's completely cooled, go ahead and flip it back over and take your knife and run it along the edges. Remember, we didn't grease the edges of that pan so that the cake had something to grab onto to rise up. So now we just need to loosen it up a little bit. It shouldn't be too difficult. After you go all the way around, go ahead and flip it over one more time, holding onto the piece in the middle, and push from the bottom, and your cake should come right out. I'm just going to serve mine with a little bit of whipped cream today because I think that's how it's best. But if you wanted, you could make a glaze for the top, pop it right off, and serve it in front of your guests. If you're going to make a glaze, lemon or orange goes really well with the blueberry cake. So I just use a 1/2 cup of powdered sugar, a teaspoon of lemon juice, a little bit of milk, just enough to get it to be a smooth glaze, and just drizzle it right on top. All right, and I'm just gonna cut a piece of this cake. It smells so good. I really wish you could smell this right now. It has such a strong blueberry flavor. All right, and there's your pretty blue cake. I'm just gonna put a little bit of whipped cream on top and have dessert. I'm Liz Houck from Cooking by Moonlight, and this has been how to make a blueberry chiffon cake.